The day I walked away from $100 million, my father called me insane. My mother cried. My brother Michael laughed and said I'd come crawling back within a month. They didn't understand that their fortune had become my prison and I was finally breaking free. I'm Alexandra Sterling, though these days I go by Alex Foster, my mother's maiden name. 5 years ago, I was the heir apparent to Sterling Enterprises, a Fortune 500 company that my grandfather built from nothing. Today, I'm watching that same company crumble while my own empire rises from its ashes. But let me start from the beginning. Growing up Sterling meant growing up in a gilded cage. Every decision was made for me, every step of my life carefully choreographed to prepare me for eventually taking over the family business. Private schools, Ivy League education, carefully selected friends, even my hobbies had to be appropriate for someone of our standing, as my mother would say. I played along for years, excelling at everything they demanded of me. Harvard Business School, top of my class. Summer internships at all the right firms. Board meetings before I could legally drink. I was the perfect Sterling daughter, or so they thought. What they didn't know was that every night, after the corporate dinners and charity galas, I would sit in my room and work on business plans of my own. Ideas that could revolutionize the industry, approaches that could bring Sterling Enterprises into the modern age. But every time I tried to present these ideas to the board, to my family, I was shut down. That's not how we do things, my father would say, not even bothering to look at my proposals. Sterling Enterprises has thrived for 3 generations doing business our way. My brother Michael, 2 years younger and infinitely more willing to play by the old rules, would smirk from across the conference table. Leave the real business to those who understand it, sister dear. The breaking point came during a board meeting 3 days after my 28th birthday. I had spent months preparing a comprehensive digital transformation strategy. Sterling Enterprises was falling behind in technology, losing market share to more innovative competitors. My proposal would have modernized our operations, opened new revenue streams, and secured our future in the digital age. I still remember standing in that mahogany panel boardroom, watching my father flip through my carefully prepared presentation with barely concealed boredom. Absolutely not, he declared, closing the folder with a dismissive snap. We're not going to risk our reputation on these internet experiments. Sterling Enterprises deals in real assets, not virtual ones. But Dad, I protested, the market is changing. If we don't adapt. That's enough, Alexandra, he cut me off. This discussion is over. Michael, tell them about your plans for expanding our real estate holdings. As my brother launched into his presentation, the same tired strategies we'd been using for decades, something inside me snapped. I looked around the room at the aging board members, the dusty portraits of past CEOs, the heavy curtains blocking out the modern city beyond our windows, and I realized nothing would ever change here. That night, I made my decision. I drafted my resignation letter, not just from Sterling Enterprises, but from the entire life that had been planned for me. I would walk away from everything, my trust fund, my inheritance, my position in the company. I would start fresh, build something on my own terms. The next morning, I walked into my father's office before the markets opened. I quit, I said, placing the letter on his desk. He didn't even look up from his newspaper. Don't be dramatic, Alexandra. You can't quit your heritage. Watch me. That got his attention. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. You're serious. I am. I took off my family signet ring, the one I've worn since my 18th birthday, and placed it beside the letter. I'm leaving, starting over, building something of my own. He laughed then, a sharp, dismissive sound that would echo in my mind for years to come. With what? You've never earned $1 without the Sterling name behind you. Then it's time I learned. My mother's reaction was exactly what I expected. Tears, pleas, guilt trips about family duty and tradition. Michael was more direct. You'll fail, he said, lounging in the doorway of my room as I packed. You'll burn through whatever savings you have and come crawling back with your tail between your legs. And when you do, I'll be running this company. I looked at my little brother, the golden child who had never questioned, never challenged, never dreamed beyond the walls of Sterling Enterprises. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll have tried. I left that night with 2 suitcases and the money I'd earned from my own private investments, a modest sum by Sterling standards, but enough to get started. I changed my name, rented a small apartment in Brooklyn, the kind of place that would give my mother heart palpitations, and begin building my dream. Foster Digital Solutions started in my living room. I took small contracts at first, helping businesses develop their digital presence. Many nights I worked until dawn, fueled by coffee and determination. Every successful project brought new clients. Every failure taught me lessons I could never have learned in a Sterling boardroom. My family, true to form, alternated between mocking my little internet business and trying to pressure me into returning to the fold. The annual Christmas card from my mother always included a note about how my office at Sterling Enterprises was still waiting for me. Michael sent quarterly reports showing the company's continued success, as if to prove I had made the wrong choice. I ignored them all, focusing instead on growing Foster Digital. I hired smart people who shared my vision, developed proprietary software that streamlined business operations, and built a company culture that valued innovation over tradition. By the end of the first year, Foster Digital had 50 employees and a growing reputation in the tech industry. By year 3, we were handling digital transformation for major corporations, our client list growing faster than we could hire people to manage the work. And then came the news I had been secretly waiting for. Sterling Enterprises was in trouble. Their refusal to adapt to changing markets, their reliance on outdated business models, it was all catching up with them. Their stock price was falling, clients were jumping ship, and competitors were eating away at their market share. I watched from afar as my father stubbornly clung to his old ways, as Michael's real estate expansions turned into costly liabilities, as the company my grandfather built began to crumble. The same board members who had dismissed my warnings were now panicking as their fortunes dwindled. But I wasn't just watching, I was preparing. Foster Digital had grown beyond anyone's expectations, except perhaps mine. We were now worth 3 times what Sterling Enterprises' market cap had shrunk to, and I had maintained complete control of the company. No board members to appease, no family politics to navigate. When Sterling Enterprises' stock hit an all-time low, I made my move. Through a series of shell companies and quiet purchases, I began acquiring shares. The market was so focused on Sterling's decline that no one noticed the steady accumulation of stock by seemingly unrelated entities. No one, that is, except Michael. "Someone's buying us out," he burst into my father's office one morning, waving financial reports. "We're losing control of the company." My father, ever proud, dismissed his concerns. Impossible. No one would dare attempt a hostile takeover of Sterling Enterprises. But Michael was right. Day by day, share by share, I was taking control of the company that had once controlled me. The same board members who had laughed at my digital transformation proposal were about to learn just how wrong they had been. The Sterling Enterprises boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it. The same mahogany panels, the same heavy curtains, the same air of outdated grandeur. But this time, as I pushed open the double doors, I wasn't the obedient daughter seeking approval. I was the CEO of Foster Digital Solutions, owner of 51% of Sterling Enterprises shares. "What is she doing here?" Michael demanded, half rising from his chair. "Security." "Sit down, little brother," I said calmly, placing my briefcase on the table. "The security team reports to me now, as does everyone else in this building." My father's face had gone pale as he stared at the documents I'd spread across the table. Share purchase records, voting rights transfers, board member resignations, all the paperwork showing that Sterling Enterprises was now under my control. "Impossible," he whispered. "How?" "The same way grandfather built this company," I replied, "with vision, determination, and the willingness to adapt when the market demands it." I turned to address the shell-shocked board members. "Speaking of adaptation, I believe you all remember my digital transformation proposal from 5 years ago. The one you dismissed without even reading." Old Mr. Henderson, who had served on the board since my grandfather's time, cleared his throat. "Miss Sterling, I mean Miss Foster, perhaps we should discuss this privately. Everything I have to say can be said right here." I cut him off. "Sterling Enterprises is now a subsidiary of Foster Digital Solutions. There will be changes. Significant ones." Michael slammed his fist on the table. "You can't do this. We're family." "Family?" I laughed. "Was it family when you mocked my dreams? When you dismissed my ideas? When you told me I'd come crawling back?" "That's different," my father interjected. "We were protecting you, protecting the Sterling legacy. And look where that legacy has led us. I gestured to the financial reports scattered across the table. Your stock is worth a quarter of what it was 5 years ago. You've lost major clients to more innovative competitors. The Sterling name means nothing in today's market. So this is revenge, Michael sneered. Destroying everything our family built? No, I said quietly. This is salvation. I'm going to do what I tried to do 5 years ago, bring this company into the modern age. The only difference is, this time you can't stop me. I nodded to my assistant, who began distributing tablets to each board member. What you're looking at is the first phase of Sterling Enterprises' digital transformation. We'll be implementing Foster Digital's proprietary software across all divisions, streamlining operations and opening new revenue streams. The board members scrolled through the presentations, their expressions shifting from shock to interest as they saw the potential. Even Michael, though he tried to hide it, was clearly impressed by the comprehensive strategy. The choice is simple. I continued. You can either adapt and be part of Sterling's future, or resist and be part of its past. Either way, changes are coming. My father stood up slowly, his face a mix of emotions I couldn't quite read. And what about us, your family? That depends on you, I replied. I'm offering you the chance I asked for 5 years ago, to modernize, to grow, to build something greater than what we inherited. The question is, are you finally ready to listen? The silence that followed was heavy with decades of family history, of expectations and disappointments, of battles fought across this very boardroom. Finally, Mr. Henderson spoke up. I vote in favor of Miss Foster's proposal. One by one, other board members joined him. Even Michael, after a long moment of internal struggle, gave a grudging nod. Only my father remained standing, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. You planned this, he said slowly. All of it. Walking away, building your own company, waiting until we were vulnerable. I learned from the best, I replied. Isn't this exactly what grandfather would have done? A ghost of a smile crossed his face. He would have been proud, he admitted. Though perhaps not as proud as I am right now. The transformation of Sterling Enterprises began immediately. Foster Digital's teams moved in, modernizing systems, training employees, implementing changes that should have happened years ago. The market responded positively. Our stock price began to climb for the first time in years. Michael, to everyone's surprise, threw himself into learning the new systems. If you can't beat them, join them, he said with a wry smile when I found him taking coding classes in his free time. Though I still think you're crazy, just a different kind of crazy than I thought before. My mother took longer to come around. The day I moved back into my old office, now completely redesigned with modern technology, she appeared in the doorway, wringing her hands. I don't understand any of this, she admitted. The computers, the internet, the whole digital world. But I understand success when I see it, and you succeeded beyond anything we could have imagined for you. That's the point, Mom, I said gently. I had to imagine it for myself. The next year brought changes none of us could have predicted. Sterling Enterprises, now a division of Foster Digital Solutions, became a leader in digital innovation. Our stock price tripled. The same clients who had been jumping ship now returned, drawn by our cutting-edge solutions. My father, after much discussion, agreed to step down as CEO, taking an advisory role instead. The future belongs to your generation, he said during the transition announcement. It's time we acknowledge that. The old boardroom was converted into a digital collaboration space, its mahogany panels replaced with smart screens, its heavy curtains open to let in the light of the modern city beyond. Grandfather's portrait still hung on the wall, but now it was joined by images of the company's new achievements, its digital innovations, its transformed identity. One evening, as I was leaving the office, I found Michael waiting by my car. You know what the craziest part is? He said, falling into step beside me. You were right about everything, not just the business stuff, but about needing to break free and find your own path. I've spent the past 5 years just following the old playbook, never questioning, never innovating. Look where that got us. I studied my brother, seeing past the designer suit to the uncertainty beneath. It's never too late to start questioning, I told him, to start building something of your own. He nodded slowly. I'm thinking of heading up our new tech education initiative, teaching the next generation of Sterling employees about digital transformation. If that's okay with the boss? He grinned, reminding me of the little brother he used to be before family expectations and corporate politics came between us. I think that's perfect, I said. Just remember, question everything. Especially if someone tells you that's not how we do things. The next board meeting was held in our new collaborative space. As I looked around the table at the mix of old and new faces, veteran board members adapting to change, young innovators bringing fresh perspectives, family members learning to see beyond tradition, I thought about that night 5 years ago when I'd walked away from everything. I hadn't really abandoned my family's fortune, I realized. I'd simply found a different kind of wealth, the kind that comes from believing in yourself, from building something meaningful, from proving that sometimes the craziest choice is the wisest one. My father, now more mentor than adversary, caught my eye across the table and nodded slightly. He understood now what I had known all along, that true fortune isn't inherited, it's earned. Not just in dollars and cents, but in the courage to walk away from what's comfortable, the strength to build something new, and the wisdom to know that sometimes you have to lose everything to gain something greater. As I called the meeting to order, I glanced at the tablet in front of me. Foster Digital's stock had just hit another all-time high. Sterling Enterprises' digital transformation was being hailed as a case study in corporate evolution. And my family, after years of resistance, had finally learned the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes the best way to honor a legacy is to reinvent it. Let's begin, I said, opening our latest innovation proposal. The future isn't waiting for us, we have to create it. And in that moment, sitting in the room where I had once been dismissed and doubted, I smiled at the irony of it all. I had walked away from $100 million fortune only to build something worth billions. But more importantly, I had built it my way, on my terms, proving that sometimes the crazy choice is the only sane option. The Sterling name still meant something in the business world, just not what it had meant before. And that perhaps was the greatest victory of all.